At the conclusion of this week's parsha, the Torah completes the story of the daughters of tzelophehad. We had previously that they came to Moshe and they said that our father died. Avinu meis b'midbar, bonim lo hoyu, he has no male sons. And we, the 5 daughters, are the only ones that he has. So they demanded that they be declared the heirs of his nachala, of his inheritance, the right to have the land of their tribe in the land of Israel. And the Rabbanu Shalom informs Moshe, Kain bnos tzelophehad dovros, whatever they said is correct. And the Torah details for us that if a person does not have sons, but he has only daughters, the daughters have the rights of inheritance, and that it goes to them. Okay, done. The end of the parsha. This week's parsha, the elders of the tribe of Manasseh, who apparently felt they were affected by this ruling, so they said that's going to cause a problem, because these 5 daughters are going to perhaps marry men that are not of our tribe, that are not of the tribe of Manasseh. So the daughters inherit property of the tribe of Manasseh. They get married to somebody, let's say the tribe of Yisachar. And they have male offspring. So the male offspring are from the tribe of Yisachar, because the pedigree of the child, as far as the shevet is concerned, is dependent on the father. Whether or not the child is Jewish is dependent on the mother. But once it's established that the child is Jewish, so if you want to know, is he a Kohen or a Levi, or what tribe he belongs to, so that's dependent upon the identity of his father. So they said, these daughters will get married to men of different tribes, not of the tribe of Manasseh. And then what will happen is that the property will be lost from the tribe of Manasseh and now go to the tribe of Yisachar. And that because of that, our tribe will sustain financial and agricultural loss. So then the question arises, which the Torah poses, is whether you can limit the right of a woman to marry whomever she wishes to marry. Are there other considerations that overweigh that? So the Torah says, Katov beineim tiyena lenofshim. They can marry anybody they want. The Torah gives them the full right. But if they want to avoid problems, so the Torah views marriage as not only the personal decision of the 2 people involved, which mainly it is, but that it has consequences. Consequences in the family, consequences in the tribe, consequences in the broader community. And therefore, those consequences, though they are not overriding, should nevertheless be taken into consideration. And therefore, the Talmud teaches us that they were very wise women, these 5 women. And they married within the tribe. they married their cousins, so that whatever would happen, the property would remain within the tribe of Menashe, and that problem would be avoided. But from this, the Talmud develops other ideas. For instance, it happens in life that two people want to marry, and they are legitimately, halachically allowed to marry, and their parents object to the marriage. They don't want it to happen. And in such cases, people feel very strongly about the matter. I've been witness to terrible things. And therefore, does the child have to listen to the parent? So the halacha is that the child, he or she, does not have to listen to the parent. Katov leinehem tiyena lenoshim. You can marry anybody you want. The fact that your mother doesn't approve of her, so, most mothers-in-law, you're going to marry her? But that's neither here nor there. You can marry whoever you want. But again, the Torah expects a bit of common sense, a bit of perspective on the matter. And then since we are looking to construct a family, we're looking to avoid all sorts of contentious situations. So therefore one could, that's also part of the consideration. It's not the overriding thing. And if they want to get married, they do get married. I've had in my experience that people have left the synagogue where I was the rabbi because I performed a wedding which they objected to. So I felt good that it was my fault, at least. Right? So they couldn't blame it on anybody else. But that's something that occurs often. But you have an opposite side of the coin here that in our time is very prevalent, is that if you continue marrying within the tribe, you're going to end up, God forbid, with genetic diseases. You're going to end up with problems. Physical, emotional, mental problems. And for instance, in the Ashkenazic world, there was a terrible disease, Tay-Sachs, which again, I had people whom I know, members of Congress, that were devastated by it. It's a terrible thing. And it's a genetic thing, and you can't, there's no cure. And it's a heartbreak.
Prevention there is?
So what there is now, there are organizations that before people meet each other, they take a blood test, and they have a number that identifies them, not a person, but a number. And then the other person also has a number, and the numbers are sent to a data bank. And then the data bank will tell them whether or not they're, so to speak, incompatible because of the fact that they're both carriers, or one of them is a carrier of this dreaded disease, and therefore you should go look to marry someone else. So amongst Ashkenazic Jews, because we always had to intermarry, and we had really no contact with Sephardic Jews, Near Eastern Jews, anybody else. And the basic genetic structure is a very small one. Could be millions of people, but the basic structure is a very small one. In the time of Rashi, there were no more than 5,000 to 10,000 Ashkenazic Jews in the world. And we're all descended from that. So even though, we're millions, but nevertheless, so to speak, the genetic pool is very small. And when that happens, so then there's the likelihood of, God forbid, these types of things occurring. And the question is, it's raised in halacha today because of the fact that we're aware of it. I mean, the Talmud doesn't speak of it because they were not aware of it. The question is whether or not, again, one should certainly go through the database and the tests, etc., but that the ideal situation would be for a great homogenization of the Jewish people from all sides, because then the genetic pool would be much widened, and then there would not be such a prevalence of these dreaded diseases that occur within our world. So here the Torah says they married their cousins. It was very common in Eastern Europe to marry cousins, first cousins. It was very common. It's less common today, but it still occurs. But the question of whether or not one should engage in that. So again, it's the rule that the Torah said, Katov leinayem tiyena lanoshu. You can marry anybody you want. At the end of the day, it's up to you. But the daughters of tzelophehad were clever. They saw the consequences. So the same thing certainly could be true in our time regarding our situations. You can marry anybody you want, but you have to take into account what the consequences are. And since there are genetic consequences, so that's something that should certainly be taken into account to spare oneself of tragedy and aggravation. Rabbi Chananya ben Akash Omer Rotza Kodesh Baruch Hu V'Zakas Es Yisrael V'Fil Chachir B'Lahem Torah Mitzvot Shenamar Rabbi Chabez Aman Tzikol Yaviu Torah V'Yadu.